The alien Empress told the human soldier, "Marry me, or the war will continue." Captain Adrian Rourke crouched behind a jagged rock formation, scanning the battlefield. His uniform was torn, dust covered his face, and his pulse pounded in his ears, but his mind was sharp. He had to stay focused. This fight could decide the fate of humanity's colonies in this system. Zithera was supposed to be a strategic mining planet, rich in rare elements. But now it was the frontline of a brutal war against the alien empire ruled by Empress Kelara, a leader whose reputation for intelligence and ruthlessness had terrified human leaders for years. Reports called her the Empress of Shadows, a being who crushed rebellions without hesitation. Yet here Adrian was, staring across a battlefield littered with smoke and chaos, realizing that Kelara's forces were not only disciplined, they were terrifyingly clever. The humans had set up defensive lines around a canyon where the aliens had launched their latest attack. Adrian's team, 12 soldiers including him, was outnumbered nearly 3-1. They had only one hope, to hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. He signaled with hand gestures, directing a squad to take cover behind a ridge while another prepared their energy cannons. Explosions erupted around them, showering the rocks with debris. "Captain!" "Incoming," shouted Lieutenant Mara, pointing toward a wave of alien soldiers advancing in strange, floating armor. Their weapons glowed with an eerie blue energy, and their movements were unnervingly coordinated. Adrian's heart clenched. Humans were trained to anticipate alien tactics, but these soldiers moved almost like one mind. "Hold your ground," Adrian barked. "Wait for my signal." Time stretched as the aliens closed in. His soldiers' faces were pale but determined. Some trembled with fear, but none fled. Adrian admired their courage. It was human courage, the kind that history had always depended on. He gritted his teeth. "Now!" He fired his cannon. A wave of plasma shot forward, striking the leading alien units. The explosion rocked the canyon. Some of the attackers fell, but the rest surged ahead, seemingly unaffected. Adrian realized that brute force alone would not win this battle. Then came the sound that made every human soldier freeze, a deep, resonant hum vibrating through the ground and air. From the smoke and fire, a figure emerged, standing taller than any human. Empress Kelara herself, her armor shimmering like liquid silver, walked through the chaos as though the battle meant nothing. Energy ripples pulsed around her, knocking aside debris and causing several alien soldiers to kneel in respect. Her presence alone caused a pause in the human lines, fear and awe mingled in their eyes. Adrian's instincts screamed to attack, but he held back. Something about her was not just dangerous, it was commanding. She reached the edge of the battlefield, her gaze fixed on him. Then in perfect, clear common language she spoke. "Captain Adrian Rourke," her voice rang out, calm but with an edge of steel. "I have watched your resistance. You fight well, but you cannot win." Adrian swallowed hard. I will never surrender," he said, voice firm though his heart raced. Kelara's lips curved into a small, almost amused smile. "Then hear my terms. Marry me or the war will continue." For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. Even the explosions seemed distant. Adrian's jaw dropped. He stared at her, thinking she must be bluffing. Surely a ruler of an empire would not offer marriage as a solution to war. It sounded like some impossible test or a trap. What?" he said finally, struggling to form words. "You can't mean that. This is war." "I do mean it," she said, her voice unwavering. "Accept my offer and the war ends. Refuse and your people will fight and die for centuries to come." Adrian's mind raced. This was madness, and yet he could not deny the logic behind it. His men's lives hung in the balance. Humanity had suffered too long under alien attacks. Could this be the only way to save them? He looked back at his squad, exhausted, tense, ready to fight to the last breath. They trusted him to make the right choice. He clenched his fists. I need time." Kelara's smile remained enigmatic. "Time is a luxury you do not have. Choose wisely, Captain." With a graceful motion, she signaled her forces to halt. The battlefield quieted. Alien soldiers paused, awaiting orders, their weapons trained on the humans. Then, as suddenly as she appeared, Kelara lifted into the air with a burst of energy and disappeared over the canyon ridge, leaving humans stunned. Adrian exhaled sharply. The weight of the decision pressed on him. His men looked to him for guidance, expecting a plan. "Fall back to the ridge," he ordered, voice steady. "We need to regroup and think." The humans moved quickly, dragging injured comrades behind rocks and debris. Adrian's mind refused to rest, turning over Kalara's words again and again. Marriage, could it be a tactic? Was she testing him, or was there something else behind her offer? As the soldiers set up defensive positions, Adrian crouched down and spoke quietly to Lieutenant Myra. "We have to survive the night. Tomorrow we find out what she really wants." Myra's brow furrowed. "Do you even believe her, that she could end the war like that?" "I don't know," Adrian admitted, "but right now every second counts, and we need to be ready for anything." The night on Zithra was unforgiving. Dust storms swept across the barren land, carrying ash from distant explosions. Fires burned in the distance, reflecting a red glow across the human positions. Despite the chaos, Adrian walked among his soldiers, checking injuries, offering words of encouragement, and sharing quiet moments of humor to ease their fear. Even in war, Adrian noticed small things about his men that filled him with pride. Private Liu, who had been terrified at first, now manned a turret with precision and courage. Sergeant Cade carried wounded comrades across dangerous terrain without hesitation. Human resilience, he realized, was not just about fighting. It was about refusing to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. Hours later, as the first light of Zithra's twin suns began to peek over the horizon, scouts reported alien forces regrouping near the canyon. Adrian made a decision. They would not flee, but they also would not blindly attack. They would observe, learn, and prepare. Human intelligence, adaptability, and courage could turn even the direst situations into opportunities. And then, just as the sun broke over the horizon, a flash of silver appeared on the ridge. Kalara herself landed, her armor glinting in the light. She stepped forward, calm and confident, as if she owned the battlefield. "Captain Rourke," she said, her voice carrying across the canyon. "I see that your people are brave. That is admirable. But bravery alone will not end this war. Will you reconsider my offer?" Adrian's heart raced. He felt the weight of the lives of thousands of humans on this planet, and beyond, resting on his shoulders. He realized something that no battlefield had ever taught him. Wars could be won not just with weapons, but with wisdom, strategy, and courage of the mind. "I cannot answer you yet," he said finally. "But know this, I will find a way to protect my people. I will not let them die without hope." Kalara tilted her head slightly, a flicker of respect in her eyes. "We shall see, Captain. Time will reveal the answer." As she lifted into the sky again, disappearing beyond the clouds, Adrian turned to his soldiers. "We survived today, but tomorrow we face more than just soldiers. We face a choice, and how we handle it may define humanity for generations to come." The humans dug in, bracing for another day of chaos. Yet amid the smoke, fire, and fear, a quiet sense of hope began to grow. Humanity had been tested, as it always was, but they were alive, they were strong, and they were thinking. And sometimes, Adrian thought with a grim smile, thinking was more dangerous than any weapon. Captain Adrian Rourke blinked against the bright lights of the alien transport as it carried him away from the battlefield. The craft hummed softly, its walls glowing with a pale blue light that pulsed in rhythm with an unseen energy source. It felt alive, almost breathing, as if the ship itself were aware of its passengers. Humans had never seen anything like it. Every panel, every curve, every movement was designed with precision, yet it felt organic, like a creature shaped by thought rather than metal. Adrian's mind raced. The Empress Kalara's offer, marriage in exchange for ending the war, still hung over him like a storm cloud. It didn't make sense. Could a ruler truly end a war with a marriage? Or was this some test of human intelligence, courage, and loyalty? One thing was certain. Survival depended on understanding this alien culture, and quickly. The transport landed in the alien capital, Zitharis, a city that seemed to rise from the planet itself. Towers of shimmering silver stretched into the sky, their surfaces reflecting light like liquid metal. Bridges arched over glowing canals, and strange flying vehicles moved silently between structures. It was both beautiful and intimidating. Humans had never seen anything so precise, so alien, yet strangely harmonious. Adrian was escorted through the city by 2 armored guards. They moved with perfect synchronicity, silent and unyielding. Despite the awe-inspiring scenery, Adrian noticed small details that human minds would instinctively observe. Security measures, movement patterns, and the subtle ways aliens communicated without words. If he could understand even a fraction of it, humans might find a way to survive here. Finally, they arrived at a vast hall. The walls glowed with faint light, etched with symbols that shifted and shimmered as though alive. Empress Kelara stood at the far end, waiting. Her armor was less intimidating here, more ceremonial but no less striking. Her gaze met Adrian's, and he felt the same mixture of fear and fascination he had on the battlefield. "Captain Adrian Rourke," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "Welcome to Zitharis. Here you may observe, learn, and decide. But understand this, time is limited." Adrian nodded. "Thank you, Empress. I want to understand your offer." Kelara's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "Then you must first see why my empire fights and why your people persist. Both sides are strong, yet flawed. Perhaps understanding will bring clarity." Adrian was led through the capital. He noticed alien citizens moving about, not in chaos, but in precise, organized patterns. Every action seemed purposeful, yet no one appeared cruel or oppressive. Children laughed in the streets, adults worked with visible focus, and the air carried a sense of order. He could see the alien strength was rooted in discipline and intelligence. They passed a large plaza where holographic displays depicted galactic events, the rise of empires, battles, explorations, and discoveries. Adrian studied them carefully. Even in conflict, the aliens celebrated knowledge, strategy, and culture. It was not mindless war, it was a civilization guided by logic, honor, and purpose. As they walked, Kelara spoke. "Humans fight with passion. You are unpredictable, emotional, and fearless. Those qualities are admirable and dangerous." Adrian listened, noting her words. She was assessing him, analyzing human behavior as if every gesture, every word, carried meaning. Humans had always relied on courage and ingenuity to overcome stronger enemies. Perhaps Kelara saw the same potential she had seen in legends of human heroes. After the tour, Adrian was escorted to a private chamber where other humans had been brought. Some were prisoners of war, while others seemed treated as guests. Their conditions were far better than the battlefield had suggested. They were given food, clean water, and medical attention. Adrian realized that Kelara valued life, even of her enemies, a quality he had not expected. One man, Sergeant Cade, stepped forward. "Captain, they are treating us well, better than I imagined. But why?" Adrian shrugged. "It's the alien way. Discipline, strategy, respect. Don't let it fool you. We are still in a strange place, and we must learn quickly." Kelara appeared once more, standing at the chamber entrance. Her presence commanded immediate attention. "You observe, Captain, and yet you question. That is wise. Curiosity is a strength of humans, but strength must be tempered with understanding." Adrian studied her carefully. "I want to understand your empire, Empress. I want to know why the war continues." Kelara nodded. "Observation and knowledge are the first steps to wisdom. Humans have courage, yes, but wisdom will save your people more than weapons ever could. The war continues because fear and misunderstanding drive both sides. But perhaps, if a human could prove intelligence, honor, and strength, a different path might be possible." Adrian felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the Empress's offer was not only a test but an opportunity, one humans could use to their advantage. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Kelara's eyes gleamed. "I want to see if humans can reason beyond instinct. If you can demonstrate ingenuity, morality, and adaptability, you may survive this war and perhaps guide it to a conclusion that benefits both our civilizations." Over the following days, Adrian observed the alien society in careful detail. He noticed patterns in their communication, logistics, and governance. Aliens worked together in ways humans had rarely experienced, coordinated, precise, yet not devoid of creativity. They had technologies humans could barely comprehend, yet their actions were logical and purposeful. Adrian also began interacting with other humans. They shared stories of bravery, clever strategies, and narrow escapes. Each story reminded Adrian of one thing: humans were resilient, clever, and adaptable. No matter how advanced the alien empire, humans could survive through ingenuity and teamwork. One evening, Adrian met a young human named Private Liu who had been captured during a scouting mission. Liu looked nervous yet determined. "Captain, do you really think we can survive here? They are different, better than us in every way." Adrian crouched beside him. "Liu, it's true, they are strong, disciplined, and advanced. But humans have something they don't fully understand: creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt. That's what has kept us alive through every impossible battle. We can survive here, too." but we must think, observe, and act carefully. As days passed, Kelara summoned Adrian frequently. Each meeting was a combination of assessment, diplomacy, and subtle lessons. She would present hypothetical scenarios, test his reasoning, and observe his reactions. Adrian began to understand that the Empress was not cruel. She respected intelligence and bravery. Humans were not just soldiers in her eyes. They were subjects of study and potential alliance. During one meeting, she asked him, "Captain, what does it mean to lead humans?" "To protect them against overwhelming odds," Adrian thought carefully. "It means we must fight with strategy, yes, but more importantly, it means we must inspire. Humans follow those they respect, not just those who order them. Courage is contagious. Morality is contagious. And when humans see hope, they fight harder than any weapon could demand." Kelara's expression softened. "Perhaps that is why you intrigue me, Captain. Your people are flawed but brilliant. They fight for more than survival. They fight for honor, for hope. That is rare in this galaxy." Adrian realized something crucial. Kelara was not merely offering marriage as a threat. It was a test, a challenge to see if humans could prove themselves worthy not just as soldiers, but as thinkers and diplomats. And he had accepted that challenge, whether he knew it or not. He also noticed a subtle shift in himself. He no longer thought solely of the battlefield. He began to see opportunities to influence, to negotiate, to inspire. Humanity had always adapted to impossible circumstances, and now he understood that their greatest weapons were mind, courage, and morality, qualities that Kelara respected more than brute strength. One evening, Adrian watched from a balcony as the alien city glowed under Zithara's twin moons. He thought of his squad, the men and women who had fought beside him on the battlefield. They were alive, not because of luck, but because humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. And if he could harness those qualities here, among aliens who underestimated humans, he could secure a chance to end the war without unnecessary deaths. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Kelara stood beside him, looking out over the city. "You understand much, Captain. But knowledge alone will not end the war. Wisdom, courage, and judgment must guide action. Humans can survive here, but only if you lead them wisely." Adrian met her gaze. "Then I will lead, Empress, not for myself, but for my people. And perhaps for a chance at something greater than war." Kelara nodded. "Perhaps the next steps will test you further. Observe, adapt, and act. That is all any of us can do." As she left, Adrian felt the weight of the future pressing on his shoulders. Humans were far from home, surrounded by a civilization that was stronger, faster, and smarter. Yet he felt a spark of hope, the same spark that had carried humanity through centuries of challenges. The human spirit refused to break. And in that moment, Adrian understood something profound. Wars could be fought with weapons, yes, but they could also be won with intelligence, courage, and moral strength. Humans were not just survivors. They were thinkers, innovators, and inspirers. And perhaps in this alien world, those qualities would be humanity's greatest weapon. Adrian turned back to the chamber where his fellow humans waited. Tomorrow, they would face more tests, more challenges. But tonight, they were alive, learning, and thinking. And in the end, thinking might save more lives than any cannon ever could. For the first time since the war began, Adrian allowed himself a small, quiet smile. Humanity had been tested, yet they endured. And here, in the heart of an alien empire, that endurance was about to prove its value. The early light of Zithara's twin suns glinted off the metallic spires of Zitharis as Captain Adrian Rourke prepared for a mission unlike any he had faced before. Empress Kelara herself had summoned him, not as a prisoner but as a partner in a critical operation. Humans and aliens, side by side, an alliance born of necessity rather than trust. Adrian's first thought was caution. Humans had been taught to fear Kelara's empire. Yet as he watched her stand before the assembled team, humans in their worn combat gear and aliens in sleek, reflective armor, he noticed something unexpected: mutual respect. Kelara addressed the group not as a ruler to subjects, but as a leader to partners, her voice calm and commanding. "The rogue faction known as the Zithari threatens both our civilizations," she explained. "They attack indiscriminately, disrupt trade, and sabotage diplomacy. Captain Rourke, you will lead the human contingent. Your task: demonstrate your people's skill, courage, and judgment. Fail, and both sides risk chaos. Succeed, and perhaps we can end this war without further bloodshed." Adrian swallowed, aware of the weight of her words. This mission could shape the future of humanity and perhaps the galaxy itself. He turned to his squad, who had been briefed quickly and efficiently on the situation. Lieutenant Mara stepped forward, determination clear in her eyes. "Captain, we've faced impossible odds before. This is no different. Humans adapt, we survive, and we succeed." Adrian nodded. "Exactly. Observe, adapt, and act. That is what has kept humanity alive for centuries. Today, we show them why humans are a force not to underestimate." The mission began with a swift departure from the city in a hybrid transport, half human, half alien design. The craft moved with unmatched speed, powered by energy systems humans were only beginning to understand. Adrian studied the instruments, noting patterns and sequences that could later be applied to human technology. Every observation mattered. Hours later, they arrived near the edge of the Zethari-controlled sector. The rogue faction had established a base on a rocky asteroid, shielded by natural terrain and advanced technology. Adrian scanned the area, calculating potential approaches. Humans might have relied on brute force, but here, subtlety and strategy were essential. Kalara observed quietly, her expression unreadable. "Your people think differently, Captain," she said. "Yet your instincts are sharp. How will you approach the base?" Adrian stepped forward. "We divide our forces. Humans will take the northern ridge, using cover to remain unseen. Alien squads will approach from the south, taking advantage of their advanced sensors. Meanwhile, a small strike team, my choice, will infiltrate the main compound, disable their communications, and create confusion. Speed and precision, not brute force, will win this fight." Kalara tilted her head slightly, a faint sign of approval. "Clever. Humans rely on ingenuity, even when outnumbered. That is a quality I respect." The operation began under the cover of a storm that swept across the asteroid. Visibility was low, and energy pulses from distant battles illuminated the rocky terrain. Adrian led his squad with careful coordination. Every move was calculated. Every step was silent. Humans had always thrived when thinking creatively, and now that creativity was their greatest weapon. Lieutenant Mara signaled as they reached a ridge overlooking the Zethari base. "Captain, we have visual on their main defenses. There are automated turrets, patrols, and energy shields. They're prepared for a direct attack." Adrian studied the layout. "Then we don't attack directly, we use misdirection. Liu, you and Cade will handle the sensors, disable them remotely. Mara, you and your team will create a diversion along the eastern flank. I will lead the infiltration team to disable communications and create chaos inside the base. Timing is everything." The humans moved with precision, adapting quickly to unforeseen obstacles. A patrol appeared sooner than expected, and a quick, silent maneuver allowed them to slip past without detection. Adrian marveled at how instinct and creativity combined in his soldiers, proving the point Kalara had made. Humans could survive and even thrive against technologically superior forces. Inside the base, Adrian's team encountered unexpected security measures. The corridors were lined with sensors and energy barriers, requiring careful observation and timing. Adrian led the way, analyzing patterns and anticipating movements. One wrong step could trigger alarms and doom the mission, yet his team followed, trusting his judgment. They reached the communication hub. Adrian knelt, examining the alien consoles. Despite their unfamiliar design, he noticed a pattern, a rhythm in the energy flows that mirrored human network systems. Carefully, he manipulated the controls. Lights flickered, and then the central communications array went offline. Simultaneously, the diversion team launched a series of controlled explosions along the eastern flank, drawing Zethari soldiers away from the central compound. Outside, Kalara's forces coordinated with Adrian's strategy, striking precisely where the humans predicted. The rogue faction was caught off guard, unable to adapt quickly to human ingenuity combined with alien power. Adrian's team moved through the corridors, using a combination of agility, intelligence, and patience. Each obstacle was met with observation first, then action. Humans had always turned limitations into advantages, and here that principle was at its finest. At the center of the base, the rogue faction's leader attempted to rally his forces. Adrian and his team appeared, not through brute force, but through clever manipulation of the base's systems. Lights flickered, doors locked, and energy barriers created confusion. The Zithari soldiers were disoriented, and without communication they could not coordinate effectively. Adrian stepped forward, facing the rogue leader. "You fight well," he said, voice steady, "but your strategy is failing. Stand down, or you will be neutralized without further bloodshed." The rogue leader hesitated, then saw the combined forces of humans and aliens outside the compound, perfectly synchronized, and realized resistance was futile. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. Adrian signaled his team to secure the area. The mission was a success. Kelara appeared shortly afterward, her presence calm but commanding. She observed the aftermath, noting how humans had worked alongside her forces. "Impressive, Captain," she said. "Your people adapt, think, and execute under pressure. They are unpredictable and yet effective. That is rare in this galaxy." Adrian wiped sweat from his brow. "We survive because we must. We adapt because we have to. Humans have always found a way to endure." Kelara nodded, her expression almost approving. "Indeed, and perhaps that is why I offered you a choice on the battlefield. Not all humans can be understood by brute force alone. Some must be tested through intellect, courage, and moral strength." Adrian felt a flicker of pride. Humans had survived countless challenges, and here on alien ground, their ingenuity had turned a dangerous situation into success. He began to understand a key principle Kelara valued. Intelligence, adaptability, and morality were as powerful as weapons, sometimes more so. After returning to Zitharis, Adrian debriefed Kelara and her advisors. They discussed the operation, analyzing each step and decision. Adrian noticed that the aliens did not merely focus on victory. They sought understanding, strategy, and logic. Humans, with their instinctive creativity and courage, had provided a new perspective that even Kelara respected. Later, in the quiet of his chamber, Adrian reflected on the day's events. Humans had faced overwhelming odds, not with sheer firepower, but with thinking, planning, and teamwork. That had always been humanity's strength, and now it was on full display. Lieutenant Mara joined him, her expression tired but triumphant. "Captain, I didn't know humans could be this precise even under pressure." Adrian smiled. "We're not perfect, we make mistakes, but we learn, adapt, and overcome. That's what sets us apart. Today, we showed that humans are more than soldiers. We are thinkers, leaders, and survivors." As night fell over Zitharis, the city's towers reflected the glow of the twin moons, and humans and aliens alike rested after a successful mission. Adrian knew this was only the beginning. Kelara would continue to test him, and the war still loomed in the background. But he also realized something vital. Humans could earn respect even in the heart of an alien empire, not through force alone, but through courage, intelligence, and moral strength. Adrian thought of the battlefield where Kelara had first made her offer. At the time, he had felt trapped, forced into a choice he did not understand. But now he saw the truth. The Empress had not sought to coerce him. She had sought to challenge humanity, to see what they were truly capable of when their courage, intelligence, and morality were put to the test. He looked toward the horizon where Zithara's mountains met the glowing sky. There would be more battles, more challenges, and more tests, but Adrian was confident. Humanity would endure, humanity would adapt. And humanity, in all its flawed but brilliant ways, would continue to rise, always finding a way to survive, to inspire, and to triumph. In the quiet moments before sleep, Adrian allowed himself a thought that had been growing steadily since the mission began. Perhaps this unlikely alliance was not just a necessity for survival. It was a chance to prove that humans were more than what others believed. That even among the stars, humanity's courage, ingenuity, and moral strength could shine as a light for all civilizations to see. The twin suns of Zithara rose over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the human encampment near the northern ridge. Captain Adrian Rourke walked among his soldiers, his eyes scanning the terrain. Reports had come in overnight. The human resistance elsewhere on the planet was faltering. Supply lines had been cut, and isolated squads were struggling to hold their positions. If immediate action was not taken, humans might lose ground that had taken months to secure. Adrian felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing on him. Every decision he made could cost lives, human and alien alike. And in the back of his mind, Kelara's words from the battlefield echoed, "Marry me or the war will continue." He gathered his squad in a circle. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice calm but resolute. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've survived because we adapt, we think, and we work together. Today, we have another challenge, not just a battle, but a choice that could decide the future of humanity on Zithera. Every decision matters. Stay sharp, stay focused, and trust in each other. Lieutenant Mara stepped forward. Captain, we can't ignore her offer forever. If she truly controls the outcome of this war, do we even have a chance without agreeing? Adrian shook his head. We always have a chance. Humans survive because we think, because we adapt. Surrendering won't guarantee safety. It will only make us dependent on her terms. Our goal is to survive and find a solution that preserves humanity's dignity and freedom. That's what we fight for always. The day's mission required them to move toward a contested zone near the southern plateau. Reports indicated that Zithari forces, rogue factions not aligned with Kelara, were advancing on human positions, threatening to overwhelm isolated squads. Adrian's strategy was cautious but bold. Humans would use mobility, terrain, and ingenuity to outmaneuver the Zithari, while Kelara's forces covered the flanks. As they moved, Adrian studied his squad carefully. Private Liu carried injured comrades with steady hands, while Sergeant Cade scouted ahead, analyzing enemy positions. The human soldiers were tired, but their eyes were sharp, their minds alert. They had survived worse conditions before, and Adrian knew their greatest strength was their ability to adapt and think under pressure. When they reached the southern plateau, the battle began in earnest. Zithari units appeared, moving quickly across the rocky landscape. Their weapons emitted pulses of energy, precise and deadly. But humans had a plan. Using natural cover and unexpected maneuvers, they flanked the rogue forces. Small teams disabled weapons arrays, while others created diversions. Adrian's mind raced, calculating probabilities and anticipating moves. One wrong step could trigger disaster, but he trusted his soldiers and himself. Using signals only his squad understood, he coordinated attacks that seemed impossible. The Zithari forces were skilled, but humans were clever. They turned limitations into advantages, using the terrain and enemy assumptions against them. As the battle raged, Kelara appeared on the ridge above, observing without interference. She did not intervene, allowing humans to demonstrate their capabilities fully. Her presence was both intimidating and inspiring. Adrian noticed a subtle approval in her gaze. Humans were proving themselves not just in combat, but in strategy, teamwork, and decision-making. After hours of careful maneuvering, the rogue faction began to falter. Their formations broke, their communications remained disrupted, and their morale wavered. Humans, guided by intelligence and courage rather than sheer force, had gained the upper hand. When the battle ended, Adrian stood at the top of the plateau, looking over the field. The human soldiers had suffered injuries, but no lives were lost unnecessarily. They had triumphed through ingenuity and careful strategy, and the Zithari retreat signaled a moment of hard-won victory. Kelara descended from the ridge, her presence commanding attention. She approached Adrian, her expression unreadable. "You have done well, Captain. Your people demonstrate courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Yet the choice remains. Will you accept my offer, or do you continue this war?" Adrian met her gaze steadily. "Empress Kelara, humanity fights not just to survive, but to retain freedom, honor, and dignity. Surrendering on terms that compromise our values is not an option. I seek a solution that protects my people and ends the war, but without sacrificing who we are." Kelara studied him, intrigued. "Courageous words, but words alone do not change reality. Your people are isolated, your resources limited. The war can only continue or end through action, not ideals." Adrian's mind raced. He realized that diplomacy, ingenuity, and morality, qualities humans excelled at, were his only tools. He could not rely solely on weapons or numbers. Humans had always survived impossible odds through clever thinking and cooperation. He needed a plan that would turn the Empress's terms into an opportunity, not a threat. He took a deep breath. "Then let us do this. Form a council, human and alien, to negotiate terms. Let us show that humans can reason beyond instinct, and that peace can be achieved without surrender or coercion. If you allow this, we can end the war while preserving the dignity of both our peoples." Kelara's eyes narrowed slightly. The suggestion was bold, almost audacious, but Adrian noticed a flicker of curiosity. A council involving humans, that is unusual. Most civilizations accept my terms without question. Why should I grant this? Because humans are capable of more than compliance, Adrian said. We think, adapt, and act not just for ourselves, but for the greater good. We can provide solutions that your empire may not see from within its hierarchy. Let us prove our worth. Kelara considered his words. Very well, Captain, I will grant this request. A council will convene and humans will have a voice. But know this, the outcome is uncertain. Fail and the war will continue. Succeed and perhaps a new path will open for both our civilizations. Adrian allowed himself a small, quiet smile. Humanity's ingenuity and courage had earned a chance to end the war through wisdom, strategy, and moral strength rather than submission. Preparations for the council began immediately. Humans were provided temporary quarters in Zitharis, while emissaries and advisors from both sides were summoned. Adrian's role was clear: represent humanity with courage, intelligence, and honor. Every action, every word, every decision could influence the future of the planet, and potentially the galaxy. During the preparations, Adrian observed Kelara closely. She was not merely a ruler seeking compliance. She was testing the human's judgment, creativity, and moral reasoning. Every encounter, every challenge, was an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's best qualities. He spoke quietly to Lieutenant Mara one evening. She's not trying to trick us, she's challenging us. Our people have faced worse odds before. Now it's time to show that humans can survive and thrive not just through strength, but through intelligence and moral courage. Myra nodded. We've trained for battles, but this is something different. It's a test of everything we are as humans. Adrian turned his thoughts to the council. Humans would have a voice, a platform to negotiate and prove their value. It would require careful planning, precise communication, and unwavering integrity. But Adrian knew one thing: humans had always risen to challenges that seemed impossible. This was no different. The day of the council arrived. Humans and aliens gathered in a vast chamber, its walls shimmering with alien symbols, glowing faintly like living light. Kelara presided over the meeting, her presence commanding attention and respect. Delegates from various factions, both human and alien, took their seats. Adrian stood at the forefront, representing humanity. The council began with discussion of shared threats, resources, and territory. Adrian spoke with clarity and precision, demonstrating humans' ability to reason, negotiate, and propose innovative solutions. He emphasized mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the potential for cooperation. Kelara listened intently, occasionally nodding in acknowledgement. Adrian realized that humans' strength was not just in their courage, but in their ability to think critically, adapt quickly, and communicate effectively. These qualities had earned them a seat at the table in a world that had once sought only their submission. Hours passed. Tensions flared at times, but Adrian remained calm. He carefully balanced logic and empathy, showing that humans were not reckless or naive, but thoughtful and principled. Slowly, alien delegates began to recognize the value of human input, seeing that cooperation could lead to solutions they had not anticipated. Finally, Kelara spoke. Captain Rourke, your people have shown courage, intelligence, and wisdom. They have proven that humanity is capable of more than mere survival. The war does not need to continue. Adrian exhaled. Victory did not come through surrender or compromise of values. It came through intelligence, courage, and moral strength. Humanity had earned respect on its own terms. As the council concluded, Kelara approached Adrian privately. You chose wisely, Captain. You could have accepted my offer for immediate peace, yet you demonstrated that humans can solve problems through ingenuity and honor. That is rare in the galaxy, Adrian nodded. We survive because we adapt, Empress. We thrive because we think, care, and work together. Humanity has always been tested, and we always find a way. Kelara's gaze softened, a faint smile appearing. Perhaps that is why I offered the choice in the first place, to see if humanity could rise above instinct, above fear, and above war. You have succeeded, Captain. Today, humans have earned not only survival, but respect. Adrian allowed himself a quiet sense of pride. Humanity's ingenuity, courage, and moral strength had turned a dire situation into opportunity. They had faced impossible odds, navigated complex diplomacy, and proven their value not with weapons alone, but with thought, strategy, and integrity. As night fell over Zitharis, Adrian looked out across the city. Humans and aliens had shared a mission, learned from each other, and built a foundation for a future that could be peaceful. The war had not ended through submission, but through intelligence, courage, and moral fortitude, the true weapons of humanity. And for the first time since the war began, Adrian felt something rare: hope, real hope. Humanity had been tested, and they had passed. The choice had been made. The war might not yet be fully over, but the path forward was clear. Humans were not merely survivors. They were thinkers, leaders, and partners in a galaxy that had once doubted them. The council chamber was quiet, almost serene, compared to the chaos of the battlefield months ago. Captain Adrian Rourke stood among the human delegates, listening carefully as alien leaders discussed the tentative terms of peace. The air was filled with a mix of tension and anticipation. The fate of humans on Zithra, and possibly across the galaxy, rested on the outcome. Adrian looked at his team. Lieutenant Mara, Sergeant Cade, and Private Liu were there, exhausted but steady, their eyes reflecting determination and hope. Each had played a part in the missions that had led humanity to this moment. The battlefield on Zithra, the infiltration of the rogue faction's base, the demonstration of human ingenuity and strategy. Now, all of that work would be tested on the diplomatic stage. Empress Kilara stood at the head of the chamber, her presence commanding the attention of every delegate. "Captain Rourke," she said, voice calm but authoritative, "your people have impressed us with their courage, intelligence, and moral judgment. They have survived situations that would have broken others. Today, they have a chance to prove that humanity can be more than a subject of war. Will your people act wisely?" Adrian took a deep breath. "Empress Kilara, humanity has always acted with courage and intelligence, even when the odds were against us. We do not seek to dominate nor to surrender. We seek understanding, cooperation, and respect. That is how humans survive and thrive. That is how peace can endure." The alien delegates murmured among themselves. Some had expected humans to demand submission, others to react with hostility. Instead, they saw calm, thoughtful reasoning paired with humility and integrity. Adrian knew that humans had a unique advantage: their ability to combine logic with morality, courage with diplomacy. The first motion presented was the division of resources on Zithra. Aliens proposed taking the richest mineral deposits for their empire, leaving humans only marginal areas. Adrian stepped forward. "Our people are capable of resource management, trade, and innovation. Sharing resources fairly ensures cooperation, stability, and long-term peace. Humanity does not need dominance to survive. We need opportunity." Kilara watched closely as Adrian's words resonated with some alien delegates. Slowly, she saw nods and quiet agreement among them. Humans were showing the galaxy what it meant to lead through intelligence and moral clarity, rather than fear or force. Hours passed, filled with debate, compromise, and proposals. Adrian remained calm, guiding his team to speak clearly, focusing on solutions rather than conflicts. When disagreements arose, he reminded the council that victory through destruction was hollow. Survival through strategy and mutual respect was far stronger. At one point, a faction of aliens skeptical of humans demanded a show of strength. "How can we trust humans?" one delegate asked. "They are few and weak compared to our forces. What proof exists that they can honor agreements or act responsibly?" Adrian stepped forward confidently. "We do not rely on numbers or brute force. Humans have faced impossible odds across history and survived. Our victories come from intelligence, creativity, and moral courage. If trust must be earned, we will demonstrate it, not through fear but through action." He recounted the missions against the Zithari rogue faction, how humans had used strategy to protect lives, how they had cooperated seamlessly with alien forces, and how their quick thinking had prevented unnecessary destruction. The delegates listened, impressed by the evidence of human ingenuity and moral strength. Kilara's gaze softened, a rare smile appearing. "Captain Rourke, your people continue to surprise me. They act with honor where others would act with power. They speak with clarity where others shout with anger. Perhaps this is why I offered the choice before. Humans are not merely survivors. They are thinkers, leaders, and partners in shaping the galaxy." Finally, after long hours of deliberation, the council reached a tentative agreement. Resources were to be shared, territories were to be managed jointly, and joint patrols would maintain security. Most importantly, humans were recognized as equal participants, with voice and influence in decisions affecting Scythera. Adrian exhaled, relief washing over him. Humanity had achieved something extraordinary, not through surrender, but through intelligence, courage, and moral integrity. They had earned respect in the heart of an alien empire. After the council adjourned, Kelara approached Adrian privately. Her eyes reflected curiosity and admiration. "Captain, you could have accepted my offer for immediate peace. Instead, you led your people to prove their worth through strategy, cooperation, and moral clarity. That is rare in this galaxy." Adrian bowed slightly. "We survive because we think, adapt, and act wisely. Humanity has always been tested, and we have always found a way to endure. That is our strength." Kelara nodded. "And perhaps that is why humans inspire confidence in allies and fear in enemies, not because of brute force, but because of ingenuity and courage. Today, you have proven the value of humanity beyond what many expected." For the first time since the war began, Adrian allowed himself to feel genuine pride. Humanity had been doubted, underestimated, and tested. And yet, through intellect, courage, and moral strength, they had turned a threat into opportunity, demonstrating that humans were not just fighters. They were problem solvers, diplomats, and innovators. Adrian returned to the human quarters where his squad awaited. Lieutenant Mara smiled tiredly. "Captain, we did it. We actually did it." Adrian shook his head. "We didn't just survive, Mara. We proved that humans are more than soldiers. We are thinkers, leaders, and partners." Today, the galaxy saw what humanity can accomplish when courage meets wisdom. Sergeant Cade placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder. "You led us through impossible odds, Captain, not with guns, but with brains and judgment." Humanity's best qualities shone through, and now the universe knows it. Adrian allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had survived battlefields, alien challenges, and political intrigue. But more importantly, they had earned their place among civilizations through intelligence and morality, the qualities that defined them. Kelara visited Adrian once more before departing for her empire's capital. "Captain Rourke, humans have earned my respect. You have not only secured peace for your people, but also demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and morality can shape the galaxy. Perhaps one day, humans and aliens will collaborate not out of necessity, but out of mutual respect." Adrian nodded. "We hope for that day, Empress, and when it comes, humans will meet it with courage, ingenuity, and honor, as always." As Kelara departed, Adrian gazed at the horizon, where the twin suns of Scythera cast their golden glow over the recovering battlefield. Humanity had survived not by surrendering, not by brute force, but by being true to their strengths, intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. He looked at his squad, then at the distant alien city. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. "We've proven our worth, yes, but the universe is vast, full of challenges and opportunities. Humanity will face them, adapt, and overcome. That is who we are." Private Liu smiled. "Captain, it feels like we've truly earned our place in the galaxy." Adrian nodded. "We have, Liu. We have, and one day others will see what humans have always known. That courage, wisdom, and moral strength are more powerful than any weapon, more enduring than any empire." The city of Scytheris shimmered under the moons as night fell, humans and aliens alike resting after the trials of the day. Adrian stood atop a ridge overlooking the city, feeling the steady pulse of life around him. Humanity had been tested, yet they endured. They had turned fear into respect, conflict into cooperation, and uncertainty into opportunity. And as he watched the stars above Scythera, Adrian understood a truth humans had known for centuries. The human spirit could endure anything. It could survive impossible odds, overcome greater powers, and shine as a light in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Humanity had triumphed, not through brute force, but through intelligence, courage, and moral strength. The war was over, the people were safe, and the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans are not to be underestimated. Adrian allowed himself a quiet smile. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge, and proved that their ingenuity, adaptability, and unwavering moral compass were their true power. And somewhere in the vastness of space, new adventures awaited, challenges that would test them even further. But Adrian knew one thing for certain. Humanity would endure, and it would always rise to meet the stars. The story of humans on Scythera had reached a triumphant pause, but the legend of their courage, intelligence, and moral strength was only beginning. The galaxy had seen what humans could accomplish when they combined heart, mind, and bravery, and that lesson would echo across the stars for generations to come.